So welcome to another one of ERASME's circular economy webinars. And today we're very happy to have Alex with us, Alexandre and Lemille. Alex is a lecturer, writer, and advisor. He is co-leading the Antithesis Group, a consultancy group providing solutions to systemic problems. He is the creator of the circular Humansphere, a much needed concept that links circular economy with its missing social components. In particular, Alex introduced access to resources and guaranteed equity via circularity as two additional dimensions to make circular economy work for human development. Alex has also lectured at a number of universities in the UK, France, Canada, South Africa, and Australia. So Alex, thanks a lot for taking the time today to be here, and the floor is yours.
Thanks, Ed. Thanks for having me today. So basically, I mean, where all of this come from is that I've been involved in sustainability topics, but hard sustainability to make sure Ed is aligned for something like 15 years now. And I was more, out of all these topics, I'm more aligned with the social dimension of things in relation with the challenges of this new world we live in, and we've been aware of since the 17th and even before that. So we had people telling us about these limitation of our ecosystem long before the 70s, and in fact, I was involved in all these topics of how can we measure the social impact, how can we innovate, socially speaking, and so on, when I came across the concept of circular economy. And I was lucky enough to be discussing with Ellen MacArthur at the beginning of the movement in 2009 and 2010, because Cisco Systems, my employer at the time, was financing the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. And what strikes me is that humans were like not present at all in the concept. I mean, we were just basically users and consumers of a new economic model. And so that was my first comment. But my second comment was like, Hélène, what is the impact of such a model on societies? What is the impact on such a model on social inequity and poverty? Because I could see that if you grant access to not services as we know them today, but in tomorrow's fully regenerative and circular model, if you grant access to something that comes back using feedbacks and positive feedback, and that can be reused, that can be valued, obviously you would value as well society as a whole and individuals, but individuals as part of a wider community. And she hadn't basically no idea what to answer because it was too early in the movement and too early in the discussion. And then I said, okay, I know exactly what should be done here. Valuing, considering humans, the people in the circular economy just as user and consumer of new services and new product is great, but it doesn't make me dream. We need more than that. We don't have the choice because we don't have rooms for mistakes anymore. The next economic model needs to be designed properly, otherwise we will face the wall. And the idea is to say, okay, can we be considered more than just users and consumers of new products and services into being valued human beings? And I will start sharing my screen. I did not prepare a specific presentation for today, unfortunately, but I can reuse, so it's very circular. A previous one that I did not so long ago. if Zoom allow me to turn my presentation into full screen. Yes. So the concept is called the circular human sphere, but the word circular is getting more and more used by many people in different ways and definitions. So maybe just the human sphere will be the name, because the human sphere is saying, is not putting the humans at the center of the concept, is just saying, where is the abundance? Where are the flows of abundance in our system today, in a limited system, obviously a system based on scarcity? And how can we value those flows of abundance? And the human sphere, the sphere which is asking the humans what could be our role and function in the next model, be it the circular economy or another regenerative model. And it starts with this graph here, which is not my graph, which is the graph from Bill Reed in 2007, but which I took the liberty to not to improve, but to adapt to this current topics. And Bill fully agreed on the suggestion made here. So basically, the key axes here are on the left-hand side in red. You require more energy, and on the right-hand side you require less energy to move into this more sustainable world. And then you have these on the side here, a world which is fragmented, an understanding of the world which is fragmented, the belief in technology only, like technology will save us kind of belief, into moving above the axis into the whole systems understanding and living system understanding. And what it means in terms of practices, moving from conventional practice we are in today into our green relative improvement, like we're greening a linear economy as we believe today, into shifting towards the top of the graph, towards what a regenerative world means and how can humans become themselves regenerative being. And so the reflection is along those lines, starting with the linear economy, which is obviously fully centered onto economics matter, moving into circular economy world where economics remain essential. Economics are still at the core of the model, and it's about we need to make money before doing anything else to positive or neutral to the environment. But here you see in the graph that circular economy is helping us to shift on towards the top of the graph, which is following this orange arrow towards a more regenerative, caring model. And then the last bubble where we would need to move is towards these regenerative life models. So the beauty of that graph is that it gives you a perspective of where the circular economy is and potentially where we should be moving to once these foundations are put in place. And basically, it's also telling you that circular economy is not an end model. It's just a pathway towards something beyond that, into a more regenerative systems. And I'm not sure why I see this the top of the screen is like that, but so basically we would be moving from degenerating systems into regenerating systems, and to move towards those paths we follow this orange arrow, where we come from these polluting and abusive societies into these recycling and consuming societies, where we are in the middle of it, those models today, into restorative and inclusive societies. So what we wish for, to restore our economic model, i.e. the relationship between us humans as users and consumers, and the product and services that we use in our daily lives. But also into a more symbiotic model where humans are also going back into the ecosystem perspective of us being part of them. We use that word nature in our Western economies. I assume you are coming from this type of economies, but in other economies, like often in Africa or in the South countries, the term nature does not exist. In Ethiopia, there is no name to talk about nature. This is just the life in which humans live, and there is no separation. Whereas in our societies, there is a separation between humans and nature, which is problematic, and moving back into those belief systems of uh, regenerating and caring for all species. And if the first economic revolution would have been launched in Bangladesh or India or anywhere in a Buddhist belief-based countries, maybe the linear economy wouldn't have existed in the way we know it today. So we have these humans with all these capabilities, what I call the axis of abundance, where we recognize that we are nature and we are part of these natural systems and we are part of this ecosystem. We are also more and more, we are also abundant in this planet. Therefore, we need to value that abundance. We need to understand the fact that humans are abundant on this planet. What does it mean? And I usually say we are full of energy. Basically, if you live in a distributed world, fully distributed world, fully equitable world, there are distributed energy, obviously low level, but that would unleash what we call the low tech technologies across different economies, and this frugal approach to the economic model. We are abundant, and this flow of this axis of abundance is also means lots of empathy. We need this next model to develop a lot of empathy. Otherwise, we will never understand the collaborative societies we need to build. I mean, I lived and worked many years in Africa, and it's amazing everything that we can learn from these societies, because they are fully collaborative. And it's if you walk in the streets of Africa without talking to anybody, is that you haven't understood Africa. And everybody is here to help. Everybody is here to sort you out of traffic jams, of a problem with your flat tire, or whichever problems. There is always someone somewhere at the corner of the street ready to help out. And then the little head here is the abundance of knowledge. We are beings full of knowledge, and so we need to take advantage of that and base our next model based on this knowledge. So I have suggested 5 different strategies out of this Humansphere. The we care. So you just imagine that here on the right-hand side, you have the technical sphere of the circular economy, and the product and services that needs to be recreated. And on the left-hand side, the biological sphere. We are in between, not for being in center, but just to ask ourselves what should be our roles in tomorrow's economy. So basically in We Care, it's about not just caring for product and services or making the product last longer in tomorrow's economy, but on top, caring for people, caring for health, caring for developing an advanced model of caring for everything and everybody. In We Adapt, it's re-questioning our relationship with the biological sphere and understand what is expected of us in order to disappear within the ecosystemic rules we belong to. I mean, going back within those rules, because we have obviously, when we went outside of those rules since day one, basically, of our economic revolution. So what does it mean to deeply adapt to the biological rules, and what does it mean for us in our next model. And I'm no longer here talking about economic model, but ecosystemic model, because we need to move away from this siloed approach of this is nature, this is human, and this is the profits. No, it's a complete whole, and we need to address it as it is today. The idea of these two strategies, we adapt and we care, would lead obviously into a we thrive, i.e. a definition of a new ecosystemic model of life, where we address the two main, there are two huge problematic challenges for humanity, is the circularity and the regenerativity of our systems. How do we recreate and how do we rebalance the circularity and regenerativity of our systems? How do we go back into that system? And the lack of equity between humans and other species. So how do we recreate that kind of equitable world where there is a lot of empathy in the middle of it? So by deeply adapting and by deeply caring, we could design a kind of thriving model of tomorrow's, away from the basic GDP model that we have today. We monitor is more like scientific feedback, and all the top strategies here are more like feedback loops from. If we adapt deeply enough, the monitoring will be somehow more easy to understand. I.e., the monitoring is all the feedback loop information that we have from institutions like IPCC and other scientific institutions about all these negative impact that we misunderstood so far on biodiversity and all these limits of the planet. Obviously, within We Monitor, it's an invitation to move faster towards the donut economic and the safe and just space for humanity. And the Humansphere is just a reflection to say, how can we accelerate, and is what is suggested in the donut economics good enough to move fast enough in the safe and just space? Or do we need to work on our mindset shifts, and we need to change the paradigm in which we are? And this is we believe, the top strategy here, which is based on this deeply empathetic model that needs to be developed, and also questioning the spatial relationship and the long-term decision-making process that we need to implement. Basically, the spatial relationship is that our relationships are developed between birth and death. So we live and we profit of maximum of things between the moment we are born until the moment we die. And this is our belief system, that we are there to live and we are there to take advantage of that life to the maximum. And the relationship, our friends, our family, our work relationship, and that's it. And we need to please them, and we need to all enjoy life to the maximum of it. In fact, here it's more like a question of, no, the relationship should be beyond the life and death of people, and beyond just the next human beings, but societies, communities as a whole, species as well as a whole, and so on and so forth. And then the long-term decision-making process, it's often based on what we know of the 7-generation model. What I think of more is the great example of the decentration, which is a system to say we need to learn and make sure that when we decide on the long term, I mean, obviously, decision should be made over the long term and beyond the time for which I am on this planet. Based on the learnings from the ancestors, and in order to protect the next 3-4 generations, the next 200 years of life of my offsprings, basically. So what decision can I make during my lifetime in order to develop the ecosystemic potential, so that I live, I am just an element of a chain, and I live a better place for my children and their children thereof. And this is about thinking over the long term. So that's what is defined under the belief system. So as I said, this is the technosphere and the biosphere relationship. And obviously the biosphere is far bigger than just the technical sphere, just not at scale here. And what is beyond any other decision is the link to life. Unless we preserve the conditions conducive to life, we are missing the point. And the fact that we talk about circular economy as just another technical economy to fix the environment, and more often than not from a mechanical mindset is problematic, because by putting human into the graphic, and again, not in the center, it's just that it's difficult not to talk about humans. We first need to talk to the humans and say, can we change paradigm, and then move them into the all species graph. Unless we put human in this middle, we will never talk about protecting life on Earth. And within our economical sphere, the organization that we call public and private organizations, so often the corporations, failing for this corporation to have the preservation of life within their value proposition, we are not moving fast enough into that safe and just space for humanity. So the idea is to say the companies and the corporates of tomorrow should be a link to the preservation of life within that design thinking and approach that we learn through ERASME, as you all know. And the good news is that there is, on one side, we can clearly see that there is a scarcity-based system, which is the technical sphere, where the resources are limited, and we need to care for those resources. So therefore, we need to change the way we access those resources. We need to change the taxation model in order to increase taxes on those resources that disappear so that we can preserve them, and unleash and remove those taxing system into what is abundant. Obviously, the biosphere is disappearing, so but the way it's been created and the natural systems on which it's based and all the rules of the biosphere could lead again to some forms of abundance, and we need urgently to preserve that biosphere. But the human sphere is also a source of abundance because, as you know, we are full of people on this planet, and dropping taxes on labor, for instance, would define the foundation of a caring economy, because if the people, labor's costs are dropping fast, obviously we would create more jobs that are low tech focused, locally created, enable these communities to talk to each other in order to sort out what they need, and to recreate that economy based on human needs first, before we can create an iPad which is fully circular. I say iPad because it was a famous example of something that we didn't need, that was created, that obviously had destroyed a lot of environmental value. And obviously 10 years or 15 years after the creation of the iPad, who has an iPad in this room? I don't need one, and I never needed one. And I used to have one, as many of us. So that's typically the example of where can we change the rules. And there are examples in Sweden. They have dropped the VAT to 12% in order to unleash the potential of labor and create this repair-based, right to repair-based economic model. So obviously, I talked a lot about all these examples. So my graphs is not necessarily following what I'm saying, but here it's just to say that we need to go to relocalize everything, because that's where there are more human energies, and that's where we can shift and replace human energy replace fossil energy by human energy, and the more we go towards this model, the better it will be. And there are some examples here. I was talking about the brand just a few minutes ago. Is that you have this model where everything is under license on the smartphone distribution. The local ecosystem, so your country or your region is fully controlled by local shops of that brand under license, where you need to go back with your smartphones if you wish to fix it or to repair it. There are a limited number of people employed in the shop, and after 1 year, you are told that the phone is no longer repairable, and it goes back to China or the United States to be dismantled by a robot. So the phone is circular in essence, but in terms of unleashing the trickle-down economy locally, it's not happening. There is no trickling down, there's no leakages, as I say here on the graph, in the local economy, just hiring 10, 15 people in the local shop. But that's really it in terms of ensuring that not only the model is circular, which is the case for that fund, it's a fully circular fund, but it's a monopolistic model, and you are not taking advantage locally of the economy that could be generated. On the other hand, you have these modular and repairable phone. I'm trying to see if I can remove that bar. Basically, this smartphone, which is repairable, and it's an invitation for you to repair it and fix it yourself. In most of cases than not, you are not the one to be fixing the phone yourself, but it's easy to fix because it's full of screws and can be unscrewed. And the idea here is that tomorrow, if you shift millions of units of such phone, just imagine the same for your TV screens and other type of electric devices in your country. All of a sudden, you will see flourishing repair centers locally down your streets to fix your apparels and devices. And it will create these many leakages, this trickle-down economy towards the local economy. It will slow down the extractive activities, obviously, because those components are now available in your country in order to remake a smartphone or a printer or a PC locally made in your country with these components coming from overseas to start with. So here you see not only both devices are circular, but one is a closed system and the other one is an open system, which enable job creation, activity, flourishing into your local ecosystem. Yeah, this is just the example in France, in my country, where since the 1st of January, we have some kinds of rating on these type of devices that tells you whether the devices can be repairable easily, whether the parts are available easily in the market, and the guidelines can be downloaded in order for you to repair the phone. So obviously the phone on the right-hand side got a very high grade, and the phone on the left-hand side got the worst grade possible. So just to say that the left-hand side phone has a very high value in terms of marketing value to the customer, but all of a sudden, if you put the right grading system in your market, it shifts the image, the reputation of the phone towards the other end of the spectrum. So that's an interesting model that says if you change the rule of the game, everything changes very quickly. We adapt. What does it mean? So remember what I said. How can we human beings go back to this ecosystemic rule? And I use the verb disappear within those ecosystemic rules, on purpose, because we shouldn't have the footprint we have today. And By disappearing, it means that we would have abided to all the rules of the ecosystems, and we would have developed this new paradigm that is necessary to change. Obviously, these are big words, but there are examples out there. Here we are in Berlin, and we have this company called Deichel, which has approached 100 families in Berlin, inviting them to create a club and saying, we will provide you napkins for free, nappies, sorry, not napkins, nappies for free, diaper. And as long as you bring those diapers back once the baby has used those diapers. So the idea is to say, I give you something and you give me something back. So typically the feedback systems, and these are positive feedback. And basically every twice a week, the families are bringing back all those used diapers that you see here in green. These diapers enter into a fermentation process. The fermentation process gives you what we call the terra preta. The terra preta is this rich humus based of human, made of human fecus. And basically, this is the terra preta that you see in the soils of Amazonia. And what we found out not so long ago, less than 10 years ago, is that the indigenous people in Amazonia centuries ago used to do a lot of terra preta in Amazonia. And it seems that there is a very good example of the dynamic between humans and the environment. So this dynamic has been working very well because they've been producing a lot of terra preta at the time. And that may be one of the origin of the tropicality and the density of the forest in Amazonia, thanks to these dynamics between humans and the environment. So very interesting example here. So this terra preta is used here around Berlin to plant trees. They plant trees in the cities, but also in the outskirts because there is not enough space. All kinds of plants and trees and fruit trees for most of them, but not only. And with those trees, they make juices, jars, baby jars, jellies, and teas. The mother is having these, and then the mother makes the babies. The baby makes what they have to do, and then comes the jar preta, and then comes the product and the fruits and that are being sold to the people. So here you have a fully circular model, and not only very healthy as well, and generating a lot of positive externalities. So positive externalities, again, not as a siloed approach like in circular economy, we will design out negative environmental externalities, but more in a holistic approach, we will design out all negative externalities, not just the environmental one, the economic one, the social one, the health one, I mean, you name it. So basically here you have all of these negative externalities being designed out. And on top of that, you are in the regenerative models, so growing more the biospheric capacities. We thrive. What does it mean to develop a model, an ecosystemic model where not just people, but everybody is thriving, everything is thriving all together? Here we are in Roubaix, which is a city near where I live. And I'm lucky enough to be involved in those projects. It's 7 years ago now, they launched the Zero Waste project in Roubaix, basically inviting the citizens of the city to sort themselves out. Roubaix is very known in France to be one of the poorest cities in France. So we are talking about conditions where we don't find jobs easily, where the health system is broken, the society is a bit broken, and there are multitudes of problematics just within the social sphere. So not to name the economic sphere and the rest. And the biosphere, the biological sphere, which is quite absent because these are cities within the bigger city of Lille and the Belgium border. So there's not many trees around. And basically they gave weight for the people to weight their beans. inviting them to measure their beans, the weight of their beans every month to understand if they are, diminishing the weight of their beans, of the things that they throw. Inviting them to make their own products, their own washing powders, soaps, and you name it. For those who have the most difficulties, granting them access to shared gardens where they can grow fruits and vegetables. For others, granting access to workshops where they can showcase what they can do, showcase how to knead, showcase how to make those washing powders and so on. So it's basically creating a collective societies where everybody is trying to help each other in order to sort out their daily problems step by step. And what's happening for the past 6-7 years now is that we saw the families which had the deepest problem sort themselves out on three main dimensions. The financial dimension, first of all. Before, they used to be negative in their bank account at the end of the month, negotiating with the bank for an extension. Today, they are positive on their bank account, and they are even making savings for their children and grandchildren, for the case of this family, at least, that you see on the screen. Less social exclusion, because when you grow your own fruits and vegetables in a shared garden, obviously you are sharing the garden with other people. Over summer, there is more fruits and vegetables than you can either consume yourself, so you share with your neighbors, and so on and so forth. So you create a network of new people, and you all of a sudden you are no longer scared of getting outside of your flat, and because you are considered poor, you're considered a family with many problems and so on. Today you are feeding your neighbors and your new friends, and you have some kind of pride developing. So this is everything that's been happening. And the health, some cases of diabetes, people with diabetes and other problems, which are now back to normal life with less diabetes, less health problems. So these three dimensions have had positive ripple effect thanks to living a life at zero waste, living a life where we eat healthier food, and so on and so forth. We monitor, so basically what I mentioned about this is the wider system, understand the wider system, making it understandable for the man on the streets, so that we all understand what it takes to go into that safe and just space for humanity, and the changes that we are asking everybody to have in order to have this monitor, this dashboard into the table of our president and prime ministers and you name it, so that we are all on the same page with this, where the system should be going to. The We Believe strategy, I mean, I mentioned it earlier. There are some like the Iroquois in North America. They have written into their constitution the definition of decentration and the concept of decentration, which is developing these multiple spatial relationship within and beyond the lifetime of people, and deciding over several generations. And thanks to that, because we have enough history on that constitution and how the Iroquois and all these societies have been developing this concept. And this is one of the reasons why they managed to survive to survive within a society, in North American societies that was like taking most of their land and turning their people into what they wanted to. So they managed to survive thanks to this concept of deciding beyond the lifetime of the people, of one of the head of the Iroquois, of the chief of the Iroquois, and deciding for others, not just for themselves. So that's the entire Humansphere concept, obviously embedded within the biosphere and the technosphere. And these are your the five strategies. but also the question is, okay, great, we all want that kind of we all want that kind of future, but how do we measure it? How do we how do we understand where we are today? And basically, this is what we use in measure in impact assessment models, is that we measure the distance between where we want to be tomorrow or day after tomorrow and where we are today, and measuring these distances. So it's distance to valuing everyone and everything, distance to advancing humanity, distance to full system consciousness, distance to system cyclicality, distance to deep adaptation. And then once we understand that this is where we want to go, and this is these five distance to that we want to develop. Obviously, it's a matter of sitting around with your communities and say, okay, what are the milestones to reach out to that status? What does it take to go about it, and design this macroeconomic model, starting with the legal framework and other frameworks, so that you can guide your communities towards this kind of not just circular but fully equitable model with deep empathy in the middle of it. So that was for the presentation, Ed. I don't know if there are any questions. If I can have 2-3 minutes back on my time, because I have to rush to take the train straight after. So if you don't mind giving me 2-3 minutes back.
Oh, you mean you have to leave in 15 minutes or less?
Ideally 10-12 minutes.
Okay. So thanks a lot for the presentation, Alex. Really nice, and always good to hear you talking about a human sphere and how we can really have a more comprehensive picture of how to integrate circular economy for human well-being also. So I will start with a very interesting question from Manuel. Very good question. It's a bit broader, and he's saying, how is the concept of human sphere standing out from the criticism of the anthropocentric paradigm?
Well, that's a good question. I'm not sure I will be able to address it fully. Again, it's not anthropocentric in a way that it's us among others, or other elements of life within a planetary system which has its own limit. Obviously, there is relation with the wider space, but the idea is to say, can we start by talking to the man on the street, to say, who are we and how can we, I mean, what are our roles and function on this planet? I mean, maybe we have wrongly understood what were our role and functions since the beginning, and this can be very spiritual or very non-economic terms, but the idea is to say, before we jump into the next model, and everybody says we have 10 years, but 10 years ago, everybody used to say we have 10 years. So I'm a bit lost in how many 10 years we have. And the idea is to say, can we please not make mistakes anymore? And I hear the question, and but we need to talk to ourselves as a first step. So I would say this is a first step towards a fully non-centric model, but non-centered model. But the idea is to say, and it clearly says that in the Humansphere, is that we are part of a biospheric world, and there is no border here. We are ecosystemic, and we are ecosystemic beings among other ecosystemic beings. So that's fully non-centered model, definitely.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, and I think building on this, Arno had a question. He was wondering whether the human sphere is equal to society and the social dimensions, or is it something more at the meta level beyond that?
I would say it's both because the social dimension as we understand it. I mean, today the social dimension as is addressed by the circular economy, if we stick to that model, is that job creation. That's really the topic and full stop. Here, it's an invitation to say no. We need to, if we talk about caring for products, because they are limited and they are based on the scared rules, it's not good enough. It's we need to move into that space where we care for everything and everybody. Otherwise, we will miss the point. So that's the first thinking. Now, in terms of the meta approach, is like, okay, who are we, and can we, by going within those ecosystemic rules, it's an invitation to. I mean, it's often difficult to address this question, but I would say to push it a little bit, humusation, which is the transformation of human bodies into humus, is to me one of the most advanced model, because we are no longer fearing of death, and that's the main problem of human being, is that this fear of death, as opposed to life, and this is problematic in deciding over the longer term. And humusation is to me an opportunity to redevelop the biospheric world, because your body humus can lead to create 100 and 100 trees. So to me, it's a very positive thing. And what could be the other function of human beings, as being in this axis of abundance, as being these knowledge people, these full of energies and full of nature? To regrow, I mean, I often take the example of the ladies in the Sichuan region, where they are in charge of fruit trees, but there is no bees in the Sichuan anymore. The food region, there is no more bees. So what do? You stop growing fruits, or you are being creative, and they hand pollinate the trees for many years now. And to me, it's what I call the new environmental functions of humans. It's like, we are not here to fix mechanically nature, but we are here to bridge what is missing in nature because of us, until such time the bees are coming back. And to me, it's a great example of how adaptive we can be. So not only with our knowledge, empathy, energy, and the fact that we are natural beings, but also our soul. I mean, going back into these ecosystemic rules will take a lot of paradigm shift for all of us.
For sure. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I like that you brought in a bit of the spirituality context in your presentation, which is so important. Okay, before we let you go, one last question that is a bit more specific, and it has to do with the case study you presented in Berlin. So for the case of Dickel, I guess it was called, who pays for Pinar is asking, who pays for the diapers manufacturing and for the whole process of downcycling of diapers into fertilizers? I think it's a really good question.
I was thinking about not talking about the model, but I forgot. Sorry about that. So basically, it's a completely it's an open circular model. So basically, you are not closed loop, you are open loop. You're opening a new loop. So you give on one hand diapers for free. I mean, these are organically made diapers. So and so that's a service. That's why they are asking the families to create some kinds of clubs. And the fact of giving for free the diapers, it's really, I mean, it removes a big burden for young families with children, because it can be a big budget. And you generate revenues from selling fruits, jams, and all of that. So they generate their revenues by selling the products. But they are also, if I'm not wrong, selling the trees to the city of Berlin as well. So they are generating revenues solely on the trees and fruits and produce that they are creating. But the exchange with the family is a free service.
Okay, so then they use
They are
that
made
information
handmade. They are handmade diapers.
So the diapers are paid for basically by selling fruits and veggies and the trees to the city of Berlin.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Okay. I think we'll stop here then, so you can catch your train. Thank you so much for taking the time, Alex, and thanks to all the participants for taking part in the webinar and asking very good, insightful questions.